Imagine yourself in the heart of the Middle Ages, where the biting winter winds whisper across snow-covered fields and towering stone fortresses stand like silent titans of a forgotten time. The air is thick with the scent of iron and sweat, mingling with the incense of churches and the worn leather of battle-hardened armor. The dirt roads bear the deep imprints of marching knights, their gleaming steel catching the pale light of the sun. Upon their cloaks, the black cross on a white field, a symbol of power, forged in war and bound by faith. This is the world of the Teutonic Knights, a military order born from the fires of the Crusades, rising to forge an empire of iron and blood, spreading Christianity by the edge of the sword. Among their ranks marched noble Germanic warriors, trained for battle from youth, yet bound by monastic discipline. Their purpose? To conquer and convert the pagan tribes of Eastern Europe, building a sacred kingdom beneath the shadow of the cross. But the road to glory was long and merciless. The unforgiving winters of Prussia, the dense forests of Lithuania, and the towering strongholds of their enemies were only the beginning of the trials they would face. For centuries, the Teutonic Order crushed its foes, carving out an empire that stood in defiance of kings and nations alike. But, as with all great powers, their rise carried within it the seeds of their fall. The Teutonic Knights were not only warriors, they were also poets and chroniclers of their own legacy. Within the great halls of Marienburg Castle, their mighty stronghold, lay a vast library where knights gathered to hear passages from the Bible and chivalric poetry. Their meals taken in solemn silence as the echoes of scripture and epic sagas filled the air. The birth of the Teutonic Order. At the end of the 12th century, as Christian armies fought bitterly to maintain their hold on the Holy Land, a harsh reality took shape. Wounded German knights were left to die on the battlefield, abandoned without care. The French and English rescued their own, but the Germans received no such mercy. In the year 1190, during the Siege of Acre, a group of devout Germans established a makeshift hospital, tending to their fallen brothers. What began as an act of compassion would soon grow into something far greater. By 1198, Pope Innocent III officially recognized this small fraternity as a military order, transforming them into the Teutonic Knights. Their emblem, the black cross on white, became a mark of their sacred duty. No longer mere caretakers, they became warrior monks, sworn to spread Christianity through battle. Inspired by the Templars and Hospitallers, yet driven by a uniquely Germanic vision, the Teutonic Order soon realized that the Holy Land was not where their true destiny lay. Their war would not be fought in the sands of the Levant, but in the frozen fields and dark forests of northern Europe, where pagan tribes still defied the Christian world. It was the French and English who first called them Teutonic Knights, a name that would endure throughout history. The German word Deutsch, meaning German, sounded similar to the English Dutch, leading their enemies to refer to them as Teutonic Knights, a title that would be forever etched into the annals of time. The rise of a Crusader empire. As Christian kingdoms lost ground in the Holy Land and Muslim forces continued their relentless advance, the Teutonic Order saw its future elsewhere. In the early 13th century, an opportunity arose. King Andrew II of Hungary invited them to settle in Transylvania, granting them lands in exchange for driving out the Cumans, a nomadic warrior people that raided his borders. The Teutonic Knights, however, expanded too quickly, building castles and governing the region as if it were their own state. Fearing that he was losing control, the Hungarian king expelled them in the year 1225. But fate had other plans. Soon after, Duke Conrad I of Masovia, a Polish ruler, sought the order's help in subduing the fierce pagan tribes of Prussia, who had resisted Christianity for centuries. This was the perfect mission for the Teutonic Order. In 1230, they launched a brutal crusade into Prussian lands, burning villages, constructing massive fortresses, and establishing German colonies across the region. What began as a mission of faith soon became something greater: the foundation of a state ruled by the sword. The Teutonic Order was not merely a force of warriors, they were nation builders. They devised an efficient system of governance, introduced their own monetary system, and ruled with an iron hand. Their military government in Prussia became so structured that it would later serve as the blueprint for Prussian militarism, a legacy that would ultimately shape the rise of the German Empire centuries later. The beginning of great conflicts. As the Teutonic Order expanded its domain, it became feared and despised. Their crusade against the Prussians lasted for decades, and even after forced conversion, the Baltic peoples continued to rise in rebellion against their Germanic overlords. In 1260, the resistance exploded into the Great Prussian Uprising, a brutal rebellion that raged for 14 years. The pagan tribes fought desperately to reclaim their lands, destroying fortresses and massacring settlers. But in the end, the Teutonic Order crushed the resistance, securing its grip on the region. Yet, while victory seemed certain in Prussia, a different kind of enemy awaited them in the east. The Lithuanians, the last pagans of Europe, refused to bow before the order. Led by Grand Duke Gediminas, the Lithuanians resisted for over a century, waging war through guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and strategic alliances. The battles between them and the Teutonic Knights would prove to be among the most brutal and hard-fought in the order's history. The Lithuanians were not just fierce warriors, they were the last European pagans, resisting Christianization until the late 14th century. The battle that sealed the order's fate. The year was 1410, and the fate of the Teutonic Order would be decided in a single day of war. The Battle of Grunwald, also known as the Battle of Tannenberg, was one of the bloodiest battles of the Middle Ages, where two great forces clashed: the might of the Teutonic Knights against the fury of the Polish-Lithuanian alliance. On one side stood the Teutonic Order, their white cloaks marked with the Black Cross, marching into battle with 27,000 warriors, including some of the most feared knights in all of Europe. On the other, a massive army of 39,000 soldiers, commanded by King Władysław II of Poland and Grand Duke Vytautas of Lithuania. The Lithuanians, known for their speed and endurance, fought alongside Polish knights, Cossacks, and even Tatar cavalry, forming a vast and diverse force. The Teutonic Knights were so confident in their invincibility that before the battle, they sent 2 swords to their enemies as an insult, suggesting that the Poles and Lithuanians needed help in defeating them. Little did they know, they were marching toward their greatest defeat. The fury of the battlefield. Under a storm-filled sky, the two armies clashed. The Teutonic lines stood like a wall of steel, their lances gleaming in the sun as the booming war drums echoed across the battlefield. At the start, the Lithuanians charged with ferocity, but they were pushed back, seemingly retreating in disarray. It was a trap. The Teutonic Knights pursued them, only for the Lithuanian and Tatar forces to regroup and attack from the flanks, cutting deep into the Germanic ranks. The Polish forces then advanced, forcing the Teutonic center to collapse. Grandmaster Ulrich von Jungingen, realizing the battle was slipping away, gathered his elite knights for a final charge, but he was cut down in battle. As word of his death spread, panic consumed the Teutonic forces, and they were massacred by the thousands. By nightfall, almost the entire leadership of the order lay dead or captured. The Polish-Lithuanian victory was so overwhelming that the battlefield was covered in corpses for days. Captured Teutonic prisoners were forced to rebuild the castles they had once destroyed. One of the most highly regarded books on the Teutonic Order is the Teutonic Knights, a military history written by William Urban, one of the leading experts on the subject. The book explores the rise, battles, strategies, and downfall of the order, offering a detailed analysis of the impact of the Battle of Grunwald and its long-term consequences. If this story has captivated you so far, just imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single moment of this epic saga. The beginning of the end. The defeat at Grunwald was a devastating blow to the Teutonic Order. For the first time, the myth of their invincibility had been shattered. The survivors withdrew to their fortresses, desperately trying to reorganize, but the bitter truth was undeniable. The Teutonic Empire would never be the same. Yet, the order endured. In 1411, the Treaty of Turin was signed, forcing the Teutonic Knights to pay crippling reparations, though they managed to hold on to some of their territories. However, this temporary recovery was merely a delay of the inevitable. As the decades passed, new defeats and uprisings further weakened their grip, and their financial crisis deepened. What was once an unstoppable military state was becoming a mere shadow of its former self. Even after Grunwald, the Teutonic Order continued to recruit knights from across Europe, but they never regained their former strength. Their once elite army, composed of some of the most feared warriors in Christendom, gradually became increasingly reliant on mercenaries. The transformation into vassals of Poland. The war against Poland and Lithuania raged on, but the days of Teutonic expansion were over. In 1454, the 13 Years' War erupted, in which even the Teutonic Order's own Prussian subjects revolted against them. Lacking resources and receiving little support from the German nobility, the Knights were eventually forced to sign the Second Treaty of Turin in 1466. This time, there was no mercy. The order lost vast amounts of territory and was officially reduced to a vassal of Poland. But the final humiliation came in 1525, when Grand Master Albrecht of Hohenzollern severed ties with the Catholic Church, converted to Protestantism, and transformed what remained of the order's lands into the Duchy of Prussia. Thus, the once feared Teutonic Knights ceased to exist as an independent military and political force. Even after losing their territories, the Teutonic Order survived within the Holy Roman Empire, but only as an honorary institution with no real power. The resurgence of the order. After centuries of decline, the Teutonic Order seemed destined for oblivion. However, in the early 20th century, it found a new identity, no longer as a military force, but as a religious and cultural institution. In 1929, Pope Pius XI officially reorganized the order, transforming it into a Catholic organization dedicated to charity, medical aid, and the preservation of its historical legacy. Though it would never regain its former might, the order survived the world wars and the turbulence of the 20th century. Today, the Teutonic Knights still exist, but its members are priests and volunteers, operating hospitals and charity missions primarily in Austria, Germany, and Italy. Once a symbol of military conquest, the Teutonic name is now associated with service and devotion. the Teutonic Order left a lasting mark on history. Their military campaigns reshaped the map of Eastern Europe. Their rigid organization influenced Prussian militarism, and their expansionist spirit echoed in German politics for centuries. But beyond conquests and battles, their story serves as a powerful reminder that no empire is eternal. The same discipline and strength that propelled them to greatness also made them rigid and unable to adapt to the political and technological changes of their time. Their downfall teaches us a crucial lesson. Arrogance in one's own invincibility is often the first step toward ruin. As Grunwald proved, even the most feared can fall. Today, Malbork Castle, once the grand headquarters of the Teutonic Order, stands as one of the best-preserved medieval castles in the world and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Ironically, it no longer belongs to any knight, but to the Polish people, the very ones who once brought the order to its knees. And so, our epic journey through the Teutonic Order comes to an end. But history never stops, and there's still so much to explore. So, if you enjoyed this saga, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more incredible stories like this.